What drives a person to become a murderer? This isn't a question we usually dwell on or empathize with, because we prefer to believe that murderers belong to a different world entirely. But what if there is a dark side within all of us, waiting to surface under the right circumstances? Perhaps the real question to ask is this: what motivations lead someone who has never committed a crime and is described as good to decide to commit a murder? Dropping the reader not into the aftermath of a crime, but right into its center, Dostoevsky's masterpiece, Crime and Punishment, offers a profound narrative that forces us to confront this very possibility. As we read, we step into the shoes of a man who has just become a killer, and we unravel his philosophy. In this novel, Dostoevsky aims to unearth deep-seated emotions within us by questioning human nature, conscience, and compassion. The subject of this video is the philosophy of crime and punishment. The book begins by telling the story of Raskolnikov, a young university student studying law. He is a poor man living alone in an attic in St. Petersburg. Through his letters with his family, we witness their struggle to survive due to financial problems. Because of these problems, he has been forced to drop out of school, which has caused him to become fragile and angry towards the world. The fact that his sister is going to marry a man she doesn't love solely for money will unleash the anger that has been silently growing within him. After a while, he devises a plan to solve his family's financial problems. He will kill the pawnbroker woman in his apartment building and steal her money and belongings. In this way, he will be able to continue his unfinished education, save his family from financial difficulties, and prevent his sister from marrying a man she doesn't love for money. This will be his first murder. But these financial motivations are strong in driving him to this act. He constantly reminds himself that his plan is logical, thus encouraging himself. He presents the murder he is about to commit as a moral act in his own mind. But are these motivations, which we categorize as material, sufficient to commit murder? This is where we must mention an important truth. Raskolnikov's neighbor, the pawnbroker woman, is a bad person. She is a woman who looks at her surroundings with hatred, is not loved by people, and profits from people's desperation. She brings no benefit to society. Her death might make many people's lives easier and make the world a little better. But is killing such a person really bad? Or is removing such a person from the world good, if it will save many lives and benefit society? This is where the danger begins, because when a person finds a thought logical, even if it is dangerous, he will also find ways to silence his conscience. He thinks about it for days. He convinces himself that this thought is logical. He even acts almost like a philosopher. But there's something he doesn't realize. Some ideas are innocent only when they remain in the mind as thoughts. But the moment you put them into action, there's no turning back. And finally, Raskolnikov takes his axe and goes to the woman's door. Sometimes in a person's life, there's a moment when their life is divided in two. Before that event and after that event. For Raskolnikov, his life will now be divided into two parts: the self before the murder and the stranger after the murder. This murder, which occurs at the beginning of the book, will haunt Raskolnikov with crushing weight for the rest of the story. So, did Raskolnikov commit this murder because of human and material problems? Actually, while material problems were the root cause that drove him to these difficulties, they were not what drove him to commit the murder, nor was it to save humanity. When we learn his views on humanity in his essay, we understand his true motivation for committing the murder better. In his essay, Raskolnikov divides people into two categories: ordinary people and extraordinary people. Ordinary people are those who live within the rules, choose what is safe, and live by obedience. Many people who have lived until now fall into this category. Then there are extraordinary people. History glorifies those in this second group. It makes them heroes and enshrines their names in books. They are the ones who disrupt the order to move history forward, and to overthrow this order, they shed blood if necessary. Raskolnikov asks the question, if a few people have to die for a step that will move humanity forward, is that really wrong? This thought is disturbing because when we look at history, it is not difficult to see that most great transformations have been written in blood. Most of these benevolent, founding, law-making people are bloodthirsty, says Raskolnikov. And going even further, he says, people who stand out a little in society, who say something new to society, or who invent something new, must necessarily be criminals. Otherwise, it is impossible for them to make their voices heard. Here he gives the example of Newton. If there were people who prevented his inventions, and if killing them was the only solution to advance humanity, would Newton have the right to do that? Although this idea seems extreme, history offers us even more shocking and disturbing examples. Let's consider Napoleon, for example. He caused the deaths of tens of thousands of people, but he was also one of those who laid the foundations of modern legal systems. How is this man remembered by people today? We say he was a great man or successful, so let's ask now, was Napoleon a murderer or an extraordinary person who advanced history? Actually, Raskolnikov is not entirely wrong. History really proves to us that great transformations come with great crimes. Revolutions are made with blood. New orders are established by crushing old orders, and we justify this violence by looking at the results. Raskolnikov concludes, society doesn't judge successful criminals, it calls them geniuses, and he begins to ask the question, if I am extraordinary, don't I also have the right to step over boundaries? Perhaps this question is not unique to Raskolnikov. Perhaps every person wonders at some point in their life, are rules really for everyone, or only for the weak? When we learn Raskolnikov's thoughts, we realize that his true aim was not to kill the pawnbroker and benefit humanity. His motivation for the murder is to prove that he is an extraordinary person because there is a possibility he cannot bear, being ordinary. But after the murder, he realizes there is a chasm between his theory and the reality he lives in, because in practice, he did not take into account the feeling we call remorse. When we see Raskolnikov's panic and pitiable state after the murder, we realize that the motivations he convinced himself of were not actually that strong. His theory of the extraordinary man fails to prevent him from suffering after the murder. He shed the blood of the person he killed, and this reality is far more real than defending an idea. The remorse he did not account for is dragging him into a situation from which he cannot escape. But what pains Raskolnikov the most is that he is not an extraordinary man, as he stated in his essay. He is just an ordinary man who constantly repeats the extraordinary to himself, because, according to his theory, an extraordinary man should be able to shed blood for logical reasons and not even feel remorse for it. He becomes ill, delirious, and loses touch with reality. He cannot even use the stolen items. He buries them under a stone, as if he believes that the earth will also cover the crime. Here Dostoevsky's brutal truth is revealed. A person cannot long play a role that is contrary to their nature. There is no extraordinary quality in his nature. He is ordinary, like most people. He is not an extraordinary person who advances history, breaks rules, and sheds blood for this cause. Even his questioning of whether he is extraordinary shows that he is not, because, according to Raskolnikov's theory, an extraordinary person doesn't even question whether they are extraordinary. So, how will Raskolnikov conceal his crime? The question of how Raskolnikov will conceal his crime from others is actually one of the easiest questions to answer in the novel, because from the very first lines, Dostoevsky makes it clear that this murder will be revealed more in Raskolnikov's own mind than in the outside world. The crime here is not an event, but a situation, and it is impossible to conceal such a state. The simultaneous deterioration of Raskolnikov's body and mind after the murder is no coincidence. The disjointedness in his movements, his feverish, delirious ramblings, his senseless outbursts of rage, and his excessive attention-seeking behavior show us that he fears not only external punishment, but also the punishment within his own mind. And in such a situation, we sense that Raskolnikov will eventually confess to his crime in order to end the punishment in his own mind. The question that must be asked is, how will Raskolnikov confess his crime? Strangely, what drives him to confession is neither his mother nor his sister, nor the state's justice system. The person who saves him is a poor, fallen woman named Sonya. This choice is no accident and is perhaps one of the most disturbing aspects of the novel, because Sonya is a poor, outcast figure who survives by selling her body, standing at the very bottom in the eyes of society. Here, Dostoevsky consciously questions the moral hierarchy. Moral salvation will come not from an educated, intelligent, and respectable person, but from someone society considers base and impure. Raskolnikov confesses his crime to Sonya for the first time. Although Sonya is deeply saddened by this, she does not judge him because she knows that judging would only further shatter an already broken person. What she offers is something that humankind sometimes forgets: unconditional mercy. And perhaps Dostoevsky's riskiest claim is hidden here. Sometimes a person is resolved not by justice, but by mercy. This is a particularly unsettling idea for us because mercy seems to mitigate the importance of the crime. Yet the opposite is true in the novel. Mercy does not deny the crime, but rather confronts Raskolnikov with it even more harshly. In one of their meetings, Sonya tells Raskolnikov the story of Lazarus from the Bible. Lazarus dies of illness while his relatives mourn at his grave. Jesus comes and miraculously resurrects him. Lazarus rises from his grave and begins to walk. Because Raskolnikov is an atheist, he initially doesn't take this story seriously. However, he later realizes that Sonya's compassion is connected to this story. Because Lazarus and Raskolnikov are similar. Lazarus's death is physical, Raskolnikov's is spiritual. Sonya believes that just as Lazarus was resurrected, Raskolnikov can also regain his lost soul, but this comes at a painful price. What Sonya asks of Raskolnikov is simple but terrifying. She asks Raskolnikov to go out into the crowd, bow before them, kiss the ground, and shout loudly, "I am a murderer." While this idea might seem like a religious surrender at first glance, it actually means giving up the lies one tells oneself. Raskolnikov eventually does as Sonya asks. He confesses his crime by shouting it in the middle of the street, and then goes to the police station and surrenders. This moment is much more than a simple legal process for him. It is the first time he has stopped running away. For the first time, Raskolnikov is not hiding behind justifications, theories, and the thoughts that led him to see himself as a superior being. He is filled with complex emotions as he goes to prison. He feels anger, defeat, and disappointment, but also a peace he hasn't experienced in a long time. Perhaps this is because he is no longer hiding from himself. He has accepted his nature, which he had denied from the beginning and considered ordinary. He has seen his limitations and begun to accept who he is. Moreover, the fact that he can still find a place in Sonya's heart despite the crime he committed clearly demonstrates the power of love and compassion over people. Crime and Punishment, in this respect, is not merely a crime story, but a profound narrative of a person confronting themselves. Presented as a cult classic, the novel takes the question, "Who am I really?" beyond a simple search for identity and reveals how far a person can distance themselves from themselves. Raskolnikov's story is not unfamiliar to us. On the contrary, it reminds us of the possibility of a person confronting the darkness within themselves. In fact, Dostoevsky asks a single question with this novel, but leaves the answer to the reader. We all live between the person we want to be and the person we are. If the person we want to be is not in line with our nature, should we still strive to reach it? And if we have to go against our own nature for this, are we ready to pay the price?